Hey, have you ever noticed our eyes aren't the same color? It was a small question. Quiet, almost playful. But in that moment, between two sisters sitting cross-legged on an attic floor, it cracked open a vault no one in the family even knew existed. It started with a dusty shoebox, sitting a DNA test kit that hadn't seen daylight in a decade. They laughed, shrugged. Let's do it for fun, one said. 6 weeks later, fun was the last word they'd use, because that didn't just tell them where they came from, it told them who they really were. And it forced their mother to a question she'd never expected to her. Mum, why does our DNA say we were kidnapped? I thank you for being here. Sometimes, the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those. Quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now let's take a closer look at what really happened. The attic in their house on Meadowbrook Drive wasn't haunted. It just felt like it should have been. Creaky floorboards, a single swinging light bulb, boxes stacked like miniature time capsules, each one sealed with layers of dust and memory. Claire and Rachel Whitmore hadn't planned on digging through them. Not really. They were supposed to be helping their mom, Melissa, clean out their grandmother's old house before it went up for sale. But boredom is a funny thing, and so is curiosity. Rachel, the bolder twin, was the first to climb the ladder. Bet there's treasure, she said with a grin. Claire rolled her eyes. Bet there's 100 spiders and a bunch of mothballs. And yet, it didn't take long before they found something that didn't belong with the Christmas ornaments and baby photo albums. It was a box. Small, labeled only with a single word, TAR-H. They looked at each other. Inside, packed beneath an old folded letter and a yellowing index card, was a 200-hand-me test kit, still sealed. Did Grandma do this? Claire asked, holding the box like it might be radioactive. Doesn't have her name on it, Rachel said. Weird. The test was untouched. New. The activation code hadn't even been scratched off yet. Rachel shook it slightly. Maybe she got it for someone else and forgot. Claire's eyes drifted to the index card. On the back, a line was scribbled in smudged blue ink. You deserve to know. That night back at home, neither girl could stop thinking about it. They waited a week. Then, one quiet Sunday, while their mom was out buying groceries, they set the kits up at the kitchen table. 2 cheek swabs, 2 tiny tubes, 2 sisters giggling nervously over what they assumed would just say 50% Irish, 50% something else. Rachel clicked the caps shut and tossed them in the prepaid envelope. And that was that. Until 6 weeks later, when a red alert flashed to the subject line of Rachel's inbox. Iction recur ID, potential DNA anomaly detected. Please consult support immediately. Rachel stared at the screen, then reread the email. Twice. Claire walked in with a soda. What's that? Rachel didn't answer right away. She just tilted the laptop toward her sister. Both of them stopped breathing. The email wasn't from some shady third-party service. It was official, straight from the lab. Claire opened her app and saw the same message blinking at her. Anomalies in familial DNA structure. Results may indicate an unreported biological connection to a public crime database. Please consult customer care. That one word made Rachel's hands go cold. Crime. She clicked again. And suddenly, there it was. The data. Ethnicity. Mixed European and African ancestry. Expected, but the family matches were all wrong. Melissa Whitmore, the woman who raised them, not even listed. Rachel checked again. Same result. Claire opened hers. Same. No match to mother. But one close biological match popped up. Marked parent match, deceased Caroline DeWitt. Claire's mouth went dry. Oots, Caroline. Neither had ever heard that name before. But Rachel had already grabbed her phone and typed it into Google. The first result was a missing persons report. Caroline DeWitt, age 26, disappeared from her apartment in Albany, New York. Presumed deceased. Twin daughters reported missing same day. Name case unsolved. Year 2008. Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. That's us! Rachel just stared at the screen. Neither of them said anything for a long time. They waited until after dinner. The kitchen was quiet. Melissa sat by the sink, peeling an orange. She looked tired, but in that warm, mom kind of want distant, not suspicious. Rachel put the printed results down on the table in front of her. Claire stood behind her sister. Mum, Rachel started. We need to talk about something. Melissa looked up and smiled, but her smile faded the moment she saw the names on the printout. And then, she dropped the orange. The knife clattered against the sink. The police showed up the next day. Not in sirens, not in force. Just two plainclothes officers standing outside the house on Meadowbrook Drive, their hands folded politely, but not casually. Detective Laura Brisson introduced herself first. Her partner, Marcus Bell, said only two words. We need to talk. We need to talk. Melissa Whitmore looked from her daughters to the officers, then back again. Her voice cracked slightly as she opened the door wider. They sat at the dining table. Same place where Claire and Rachel had done their homework, birthday candles, blown out Thanksgiving prayers whispered. Now it felt cold, too quiet. Detective Brisson didn't waste time. We received a report from a genealogical testing firm. She said gently, your daughter's DNA flagged in connection with an unsolved case in upstate New York. Rachel was the first to speak. Caroline DeWitt. Both detectives nodded. She was your biological mother, Brisson said, turning to the girls. And according to state records, she's been missing for 16 years. Claire leaned forward, whispering, is Ship dead? A Detective Bell didn't answer. He just slid a folder across the table. Inside, newspaper clippings, photographs, and a scanned birth certificate. Claire and Rachel Whitmore. Born July 12, 2008, Albany Medical Center. Mother Caroline DeWitt. Father unknown. Melissa said nothing for a long time. But the girls noticed it, her hand trembling against the table. Then finally she spoke. I didn't take them. Her voice was small. I didn't know. Detective Bell looked skeptical. Melissa took a breath. I found them. Or rather, my mother did. The detectives stayed for over an hour as Melissa told them everything. She was 26 when her mother, Catherine Whitmore, called her one night in November 2008. Said she'd come home to find two infants left on the back porch, bundled up, crying. There was no note, no blood, no sign of a break-in, just the babies. They were left on our doorstep, Melissa said, my mom. She panicked. We didn't know what to do. I begged her to call the police, but she said, she paused, she said, they're not stolen. They're safe now, and we're not giving them back to whatever they came from. Brisson frowned. So your mother kept them, changed their names, raised them as yours. Melissa nodded. I was young, single. I'd always wanted to be a mom, and part of me believed it was fate. That maybe this was how it was supposed to happen. Rachel whispered, you lied to us. Melissa turned, pain etched in every line of her face. Nog, I raised you. I never lied in my love. I just didn't know. The rest. Brisson stood. We'll need to take a formal statement. Claire asked the only question that still mattered. Who was our father? The answer wasn't in any database, not at first, but buried in the back pages of the folder Detective Bell carried was an incident report. Never confirmed, never followed up. Caroline DeWitt had once filed a restraining order against a man named Vincent Holbrook, a known associate of a suspected trafficking ring operating in the Northeast in the early 2000s. No charges were filed, no follow-up interviews, just a name and an address long since torn down. That night, Claire and Rachel climbed into the attic again. This time, they weren't looking for adventure. They were looking for the truth. Behind a row of boxes marked Xmas Liaches, Claire found it, a stack of journals wrapped in a floral scarf. They were dated between 2007 and 2010, their grandmother's handwriting. November 4th, they're here. Two girls, left like gifts in the rain. I don't know who left them, but I know what they're running from. December 1st. Melissa asked again. I told her the truth she could handle, that they were abandoned, that someone gave them up for good reason, and that now they're ours. May 9th. A man came to the porch. Asked if I'd seen his girls. I didn't answer. Locked the door. Called no one. I don't regret it. I saw the bruises on that baby's neck. I saw the way they flinched in sleep. Whatever he was the danger, not me. Rachel was crying before they finished the first page. Claire just stared at the ink. 2 days later, the girls were called back to the precinct. Detective Brisen looked more serious than before. "We found him," she said. "Vincent Holbrook, your biological father." Rachel's voice shook. "Is Heg alive?" "Yes, but he's in custody. Federal prison. Has been for 7 years." "For what?" Claire asked. "Multiple charges, conspiracy, abduction, racketeering. There's no doubt. He was involved in trafficking. Caroline was trying to leave him when she disappeared." The air felt heavy. Rachel's fingers tightened into fists. "So he's the one who left us?" Brayson hesitated. "Not exactly." She pulled out another document. Statement from Vincent Holbrook. "I knew I couldn't keep them safe. The mother was gone, and they were looking to take the kids next. I left them where I knew someone kind would find them. I watched. I waited. When I saw the woman, Catherine Wetmore, take them inside, I walked away. That was the last good thing I ever did." The truth didn't feel clean. It felt cracked. Claire whispered, "So he didn't love us?" Brisen looked at her kindly. "No, honey, I think. In his own twisted way. He might have saved you." It started with a local reporter. Then it spread fast. By the end of the week, the twins' story was on every screen. Headlines liking, "Twins discovered via DNA kit were abducted as infants." "Albany cold case cracked by at-home test." "Mom or kidnapper who raised the Whitmore girls." The media didn't care about nuance. They didn't care that Melissa never knew, that she'd raised them with love, that she'd tucked them in through fevers and breakups and college apps. To the world, she was the woman who kept a secret. And to the girls, she was suddenly a stranger they had to defend. They came in trucks, vans with satellite dishes, tinted windows, oversized lenses. Neighbors watched from porches, cars slowed. And one morning, someone slipped a note into their mailbox. "Baby thieves shouldn't get to keep nice houses." Rachel ripped it up before Melissa could see. Claire started sleeping with headphones in. They still called her mom. But now they also asked questions, hard ones. "Why didn't Grandma tell anyone? Why didn't you?" Melissa finally broke. "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared the moment I called the cops, someone would take you away. You were my daughters. I didn't care how you got here. I only knew I wasn't letting you go." 2 weeks after the story broke, a producer from a primetime news show reached out. They wanted an exclusive. National airtime, 5 million viewers. Rachel wanted to do it. Claire wasn't sure. "Isn't this ours?" she asked one night. "Don't we get to keep this to ourselves?" But Rachel shook her head. "They're already telling our story. Might as well tell it right." They flew to New York, sat under bright lights, answered hard questions with poised voices. Claire said, "We didn't grow up in fear. We grow up in warmth." Rachel adding, "The woman who raised us isn't perfect, but she was our mother in every way that counts." Melissa, seated between them, wept quietly. When asked if they forgave her, Rachel took her hand and said, "We never had to." A few days later, Melissa received a letter in the mail, no return address, inside a copy of a police report from 2009, signed by Catherine Whitmore. She'd tried to report it, had walked into a sheriff's station with 2 crying infants, but when the officer on duty learned she had no paperwork, no explanation, no evidence of birth or custody, he marked her down as a confused senior with dementia and sent her home. The system had failed long before the family ever could. Claire folded the report in silence. Rachel just said, "She tried." 3 months passed. The noise faded, the reporters left. The headlines turned elsewhere. Claire enrolled at Northwestern. Rachel followed a year later. Melissa kept the house but not the attic. She cleared it out. Box by box, memory by memory, they kept the journals. And every year, on July 12th, they celebrated Found Day, their private holiday, not for their birthday, but for the day they learned who they were. And more importantly, why they were loved. They never did find Caroline DeWitt's body, only a memory, a missing mother with ocean-colored eyes, the same kind Rachel sees every time she looks in the mirror. Claire wonders what her voice sounded like, whether she sang lullabies, whether she left that box on Catherine's porch herself, or if someone took that choice from her. Some questions never get answers, but some answers don't need questions. Melissa still keeps their old baby photos on the mantel. First steps. First Halloween. Two tiny girls in sunflower costumes, holding hands like they'd never let go. They didn't know where they came from, but they always knew where they belonged. One autumn, Claire wrote a piece for her college paper. It was short, just a few hundred words. She titled it "The Woman Who Wasn't My Mother, But Always Was." She wrote about Melissa's hands, how they smelled like vanilla when she braided their hair, how she waited in the car during middle school dances, how she didn't cry when they asked about Caroline, just listened. She ended with a sentence that made even her editor cringe. You don't need to share someone's blood to carry their heart. Rachel found her way to advocacy. She speaks at high schools now, tells kids to ask questions, to chase truth, but also to forgive the quiet sacrifices people make in their name. They still visit the house on Meadowbrook Drive. The attic is empty now, but the floorboards still creak. And once, as Rachel reached for a box of old photos, she found a corner of paper tucked between the rafters. It was a note, written in hurried handwriting, yellowed by time. If they ever ask, tell them they were never lost, only delivered to someone brave enough to love them. It wasn't signed, but they knew the hand. In the end, the truth wasn't just in the DNA. It was in the silence, the sacrifices, the small decisions that don't make headlines, but build the foundation of a family. You don't have to be born to someone to be theirs. You just have to stay. Through doubt, pain, through the unraveling. And if you you don't just rewrite a story, you create a new one. So many of us grow up believing family is something you're born into, but sometimes it's something you find. Sometimes it's a woman who never carried you, but carries your every fear like it's her own. Sometimes it's a pair of hands that never passed down your DNA, but passed you tissues when your world cracked in half. What this story reminds us is simple, but sacred. Family isn't made by biology. It's made by choice, by sacrifice, by love that shows up again and again, even when no one's watching. And maybe the people who raise us, the ones who fight for asylum safe, they're the real heroes history forgets to mention. If this storage something deep inside you, if it made you think about the people who showed up when they didn't have Tog, share that with us. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear what family means to you. And if you'd like more stories that speak to the quiet strength in everyday people, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell, because the next story might just be your own, told in a way you've never heard before. Until then, hold tight to the who chose to stay. They are and always will beg your real family.